Hello viewers, welcome back to our YouTube channel. Today we are going to look at the graphing, and as I promised you in the last video that we are going to be handling each of the graphs or charts that we do independently. So today we kickstart with our chapter 5 and we want to look at the different charts that we are going to draw. Of course, we had highlighted the tons and tons of charts that we may look at as well as the syllabus is concerned, and those that are outside the syllabus but we think you need to understand them, like the things to do with box plots, box and Wix plots, then stem and leaf. Those are some of the others, plus of course the comparative charts or bar charts that we think you may need an understanding of how they can be drawn. So just like the way you're seeing that we are using a graph-like page, it looks like a graph even though it's not perfect, but we are going to use that. So we are going to start with simple bar charts. Of course, we had looked at the pictographs or pictograms, and we have seen how to draw them, what is needed. So today is 23rd June 2026. So it's 23rd June 2026, and we've said we want to look at what we call the simple bar charts. We want to look at the simple bar charts. Of course, in a simple bar chart, you will realize that we need to create a separate bar for each class that we are presenting, or for each item that we are drawing against, and then the height or a height of that bar chart or that bar, or the height of each bar that represents a class is going to be proportional to the class frequency. And class frequency is like the number of counts that item has occurred. If it has happened maybe 2000 times, we shall also have our scale adjusted to cover the items that we have been given to us. So you can also identify the figures that each bar represents at the base of the bar chart, or at the base of each bar, or you can use a key to show that maybe this color represents maybe this color. If maybe you're using a computer to draw some of these, you can use different colors to represent different items that are being represented by different bars. Or you can do the shading. You can shade then, so that you can be able to identify these items as we go on and on. So one of the most important points that you need to remember when you are drawing this simple bar chart is that you have to start your scale from 0. I'm going to elaborate on that when you are starting, of course you draw your axes, but when you are starting to put the figures, you start from 0. That's what they are telling us, that we should always, or we must start our scale from 0. So That's maybe the small theoretical things. I don't want to make this course unit to look more theoretical than it is, because it is very practical paper and we need to address key items. So let's go straight to the examples. Let's look at the first example. Of course, we are going to use easy examples, then we go on and on to add just a little bit. So the first one, examples, because the first example we want us to draw we use a different color. Draw a simple bar diagram to represent the profits of a bank for 6 years. The profits of a bank for 6 years. Of course, meaning the information that we are going to be given to us, we shall have the years and then we shall have the profits. So let's represent this in a tabular form. We start with the years. Then we represent the profit. But this profit is in millions. Let me just use millions of shillings. I've used the M to represent millions. So they have told us, they have given us the 6 years of data for the profits of a certain bank. So they have given us 2005. They have given us 2006 up to 2010. 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, and 2010. If you just take the direct mathematics, you may not get it. You may say 2010 minus 2011, you may say 2010 minus 2005. You'll find as if they are 5 years, but just even the 2025 is, you start counting from 2005. So 2005 is inclusive. That's why you're seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 years. In 2005, we have 11 million. 2006, we have 14 million. We are writing only 14 because we have put these figures, they are in millions. That's why we are seeing M in the bracket here to represent millions. In 2007, we have 15 million. In 2008, we have 18 million. 2009, we have 30 million. And then lastly, in 2010, we had 40 millions. So they told us to draw a simple bar diagram to represent the profit of the bank for the 6 years. So we said that if you are to draw a good table, it should have at least a title, it should have a scale. The axes have to be named. And then we said what is very key for the bar chart, we always put the scales to start from 0. So that's the information that we have. But the moment you are given a question on any bar chart, what you have to first think of is the scale. Maybe let's first write the title, and of course we can say it is a simple bar chart, a simple bar chart showing the profits. Of course you get the title from the question, profit of a bank for 6 years. You can underline if you want to. Of course, we get this from the question. The question, they told us draw a simple bar diagram to represent the profit of the bank for 6 years. So you pick what this information is all about. This information is all about the profits. These profits are for what? Which entity? They are for a bank. If they are given the name of the bank, you put also the name of the bank. For how long are we covering this? We are covering it for 6 years. It is always better to know which type of graph you are drawing. You name it in the title. It shows which information. If they are profits, if they are revenue, if they are sales, you indicate that. Then it's for which entity. Then you put the name of the entity. Finally, you have to make sure that you add the period. It goes for what period. Those are the key things that the examiner will be looking out for in any kind of heading that you have provided. So before we move to drawing the chart, I told you it is always better to analyze the information that they have given to you to know the scale. So let's have a scale. Of course, we need both the horizontal scale. Let me just call it HS, horizontal scale. Whenever you are drawing any graph, you make sure that on the graph paper, you at least utilize 3/3, 3/4, 3/4 actually. It is 3/4 of the graph book. You utilize 3/4 of the graph book, and that should be representing the graph. The graph should at least, or the diagram should take at least 3/4. Then the other 1/4, maybe it will be for the title, it will be for the scale, and then it will be for the labeling. So you have to balance your graph paper, not to draw a graph that is covering, let's say, 1/4 of the graph and the rest of the thing. It's not a must, because at some point it's you may fail to apply what we are talking about, but it's always better to apply such information, that perspective. Let the diagram that you are drawing occupy 3/4 of the graph book, and then the rest of the quarter represent the bar chart, the scale, and then the labeling. So the scale, of course, the scale we need now, what is going to be on the horizontal, we have the years. So we have only 6 years. So the 6 years, the question is, how many centimeters do we have on the horizontal scale? You can assume maybe we can have, let's say, let me assume 15. Then on the 15 for you can say, oh, even if you say they are maybe 12, 13 or 10, it's okay. You can now, from here we can say 2 centimeters, let 2 centimeters represent 1 year, because these are years. 1 year for the horizontal scale, because we want the graph to be, because if you take 1 centimeter, you'll find that you have used only 6 centimeters for the graph, and the graph maybe is having, let's assume it has 15 or 20 centimeters. You are seeing you have just used the half of the page. So you can take 2 centimeters to represent 1 year. Then we go to the horizontal scale. We don't need to interpret the scale for the horizontal scale because these are just years. Then we go to the vertical scale. Now for the vertical scale, remember we have values. The smallest value is actually 11 and the highest value is 40. Because you want to use the other rule of 3/4 of the page, we can say that maybe let 2 centimeters represent 5 units, and these units are going to be profits. Excuse me. Now you find that in the 2 centimeters we have 10 square, those small squares, they are 10. In 1 centimeter we have 5 squares. So if the 10 squares are going to be representing 5 units, the question is, what about the 1 square? You divide this by 10, even this by 10. Whatever you get the value for each square. And one small square is actually equaling to, the one small square is actually equaling to a half, 0.5 units. Now what is the implication? The interpretation of this is that in that one small square, because the reason why we are dividing this is the fact that we may get values, we may not get. That's the other rule of fives and tens, that at least if you are getting the scale, you always make sure that it is either a multiple of 5 or they are in fives or tens. The reason is for us to get these small squares, we base on the squares that are in 1 centimeter. Now we are saying that for you to get a 1, for you to get 1 unit, it means if I'm plotting 1 unit, if 1 was part of the units I'm supposed to plot, I would use 2 small squares, because 1 small square is equivalent to 0.5 units. This is what they have told us here. Now if I want to know how many small squares will I use for me to print that 1 unit, it means it will be the 0.5 times 2. This will give you a 1 unit. So you will need to have, because this 0.2 is like a half, a half and a half, you get 1 unit. So if because we've seen that in our information that we have been given to us, we have 11. We have figure 11. And this figure 11, we have said that 2 centimeters are going to be equaling to 5 units. It means for me to get 11 units, I have to get 2 times 2. I'll have to use 4 centimeters to represent 10 units, because it will be 2 times 5, that's 10. But remember, we have the figure we are plotting 11. So we need to count extra 2 small units to have ourselves 11. So we are going to see. So if you are using a graph book, what I'm talking about, you will be seeing them, because we have that broad line that separates the small squares and the 1 centimeter. You will see that those, where you are seeing those in between those 2 broad lines, the first 2 broad lines, you will see that there are 5 small squares inside. So if that is the case, then it means that if I've used a scale of 2 centimeter to represent 5 units, I would be needing like 4 centimeters and then two small squares to represent 11. So this is not a graph paper, but if you're using the graph paper, you'll get this right. So let me just draw. Let's assume that this is our graph paper, and I want to represent the other rule of. So you will see that at least this side, you are going to leave like 2 centimeters for you to be able to write the figures. This side I can leave 2 centimeters like that. Let me assume those are the 2 centimeters. Even below, I leave 2 centimeters. The reason as to why I'm leaving the 2 centimeters is because I want to write the information. This side I'll be having what you call the years. But remember, each year we have said the 2 centimeters are going to represent. I'm just going to count. Just going to assume that those are my 2 centimeters. Because I'm not using a graph paper, but if you're using a graph paper, let me assume those are 2 centimeters. Let me also assume that these are 2 centimeters. Also that 2 centimeters. Even that maybe is 2 centimeters. That is also 2 centimeters. Even that. So we want 5 years. We want 6 years. So this is 1. This is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But you are seeing, this is what I've been talking about. You can see that if I stop here, I will have to write maybe the years here. Then here I'm supposed to start from 0, because we said that when you are making these bars, you always start from 0. So here I'm going to say that this is maybe 20, this is maybe 2005, as I'm labeling. But the other thing that you also need to note is that we said when you're dealing with bar charts, you always leave a space. And this space, for the spaces that we are leaving, we don't give them a scale. No, for the spaces we are leaving, we don't give them scales. But what is key is that the spaces that we are leaving in between the bars are supposed to be uniform. They are supposed to be equal. The only chart where we don't leave spaces is what we call the Pareto graph. There is that Pareto where you pick out, you first plot the highest, you plot based on how high are the numbers, or you plot based on from the highest. Actually, you plot in the descending order. You plot from the highest to the lowest. That Pareto graph, we shall also look at it. But for these ones, we always leave a space. So this one, we are going to say that this is, of course, it's always good for you to write the years in between here. Maybe you put 2005. Then you come here, you say 200. But remember, we have to skip. And it is not mandatory that the scale we have used for the years will be the scale for the space. No. We said you can skip a smaller space, but let that space be uniform to all the bars. So what I'm going to do, for me, since I'm not using a graph, I'm just going to leave this small square you are seeing here. This, maybe this, and this. That's the one I'm going to be leaving. That small square. I'm just going to be leaving 1, 1. So for me, even if I just name my years. This is 205. This is 206. This is 207. This is 208. This is 209. This is 2010. So we start now plotting. Then we go to the horizontal scale. Sorry, to the vertical, where we are done with the horizontal, so we go to the vertical. For the vertical, of course, we said we are going to use 2 centimeters. I'm just going to take maybe 2 from here. I just take like two small boxes, squares that you are seeing here to represent 5. Maybe those are 10. Those are 15. That is 20, 25, 30, 35. You have seen, if I use that, it's not going to allow me to have a 40, because remember, my bars are supposed to end at 40. So what I'm going to do, maybe let me adjust upwards, or I can adjust the scale, because this is not a graph. This is not a graph paper, but I'm trying my best to make sure that the information fits in. Maybe let me adjust upwards just slightly to make sure that we are including the value for 40. That's 40. So we can indicate the values, because this is 40, this is 35, this is 30, this is 25, this is 20, this is 15, this is 10, and finally 5. But as I told you, we always start from 0. That is very important. The reason as why we start from 0, we don't want to show that these figures are actually that we have started somewhere. There are some figures that we have not dealt with, because we said that these values, the horizontal bars have to be coming from the baseline. So we always take the baseline to be 0. So you indicate this side that these are profits in millions. Then you start drawing. Now, of course, there are very many options, but let's first plot the one for 2005 is 11 million. This is 10, so it will be above somewhere here. But I remember I said I'm going to be skipping only one small line. So it will be around, so it's going to be around there. I've skipped this one. Then I also skip the same for this other one is 14. So it is up here. I skip one. Then the next one for 2007, we have, it is a 15. So also skip one. Then for 2008, it is 18. So that's 2008. Then 2009, we have a 30. We skip one. 30 is above here. Of course, for you, you'll be using a ruler, so you not have some of these crossings that you are seeing me putting. Let me remove and adjust it well. Then we plot for 2000 and of course that was 2009. Then we plot 2010. 2010 is 40. So we look for the 40. 40 is around here. We also skip one. What is key is that whatever you skip has to be uniform for all. Now you see, that's the bar chart. So you can see that we have skipped here, we have skipped the same. Even here we have skipped the same, even here, even here, even here, and lastly here. So now what is left here is one thing, is what we call the shading. The first person can say that since I'm dealing with the same information, since I'm dealing with the same information, I can come here to shade, and maybe I shade off like this. I shade them using the same color. You shade them using the same color. Maybe let me use one color that we have not used. Let me use maybe yellow to shade this, because I can't use blue. Blue already, the graph seems to be blue like. So you can shade them like this. Even this, I shade all of them using the same color. So if you have done that, then when it comes to the key, for you to put the key, when it comes to the key, you just show that this color yellow, this yellow color represents the profits in millions. You can just put profits in millions. Profits in millions. Millions of shillings. Meaning this side you will not name. You will not put the name, you will just plot it like that, then you put the key like that. That's one way. The other option is for you to name this vertical axis as profits. Then you come to these bars and you shade them differently. So you provide each of the shading and you name them as per the years. How will it be? You can come here, maybe you leave one of these unshaded and you say that that unshaded is maybe 2020 and you can say now this is 2005 in the key. Then you shade the other with a different color, If you are using, of course, in the exam, you are not going to have colors. You will have a pencil or a pen. You will shade using different, most of the times you can use, maybe you put V's. Like in here, you can come and put V's like this. Or the other, you put C. Then in the other, you put maybe X. Then in the other one, you can just cross like this. As long as you can provide a key to what you have done, it's okay. But don't overshade, because you will not be having more time. Just put what is enough. You can even use M in some of these. You will use W in some of these figures. As long as you can tell that this graph represents that. So if you shade each of these graphs independently, it means you are going to identify using the years. But if you have shaded them in a similar way, then you make sure that this side you don't mention. Then you just put on the vertical axis, what will be on the vertical axis, you just put the numbers, and then the labeling will be in the key. So that happens if, of course, that one is more applicable when you're dealing with the simple bar chart. So it's always good to go with different shadings of the different bars, because most of the questions that are going to come, they may not be on a simple bar chart, they may be on the compound bar chart, if it happens to be there. So what are some of the features? The features of this, we have seen that it has a vertical, and then it can have verticals or it can have horizontal bars, but those must show the scaled frequencies, or they should show the frequency on one of the axes, So the other is that, of course, they are easily adopted to take account of both the positive and then the negative values. We can use a simple bar chart to draw figures, both negatives and positives. So maybe we can look at just a small illustration to show how we can capture information if we are given maybe some negative values. Like for instance, if you are dealing with the temperature, because temperature can go into negatives. So if you are looking at the temperature in degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit, you can be able to draw both negatives and positives. But what is very key is for you to also understand how can I describe the data that has been given to me. If you look at that, if you look at this bar chart that we have got, you can see that there is an increasing trend because the values are increasing. That in 2005 we had 11 million, but when we reached to 2010 we had 40 million. So there has been an increasing trend in the profit of the bank for the 6 years they gave us, because of the fact that these bars keep on increasing up to the last part. So it is always very important for you to know how you can describe the data. So let's look at a scenario where we can have both positives and then the negatives. How are we able to draw such values? And of course, we experience the fact that these bars can be drawn horizontally or vertically. So it's really important for you to understand that we can have a vertical representation of data, or we can have a horizontal display of data. And we have seen that one of the examples or one of the cases where they can bring the negatives is probably with the temperature. Of course, they can also give you a negative profit, because most of the companies, when they are starting, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to make profits, even though that would be their objective, to maximize profits and wealth at the same time. But it's not always true that these companies, when they kick off, they are making profits all the way. So let's have a scenario where we are going to have, actually we illustrate two things: horizontal display of bars, and then the fact that we have negative values. So let's put it maybe in an example 6. I'm just going to draw this. This is an example. Of course, here we are trying to look at the horizontal bars. Horizontal bars with negative values. So we don't just do graphs, but we find reason as to why we are doing some of these things. So we can make just an hypothetical question where we are going to have locations, maybe locations that are going to be named in areas to do with A, B, C, D. Maybe those are just sections, or those are just divisions or regions of a given country. Then they are giving the different temperatures based on that region where they are picked the information. So how do we draw the horizontal data? Of course, instead of putting the line the vertical axis at the end of this side, like that, we are going to draw it in the middle. Why? Because we know that negatives are always on this side. So one thing that we need to make sure is that we have to have a baseline. Let's assume that's our baseline. Now, instead of drawing the vertical from the extreme right, we are going to draw it, let's say, in the middle, depending on how the data is spread. Because you may find that in the question they have given you maybe 3 numbers which are negatives. It means, and the rest, majority of the values are positives. So it means the positive side, which is this side, will be bigger than this side. So if you find I have very few numbers, maybe they are like 3, whereby you can put 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. You extend this line maybe to this point, so that you can have more display for the values that are going to be negatives. Actually, that's the same thing I should do. Let me add just this. So you are getting the reason as why we are doing that. And the numbering, so let me put it here, because I have only 3. Let me assume I was given only 3 values. I'm trying to draw it a little bit thicker, because I want to highlight the fact that, of course, these values are still moving this side, but maybe I'm picking up to that point. So even I go ahead to pick maybe these values, maybe that there, maybe here, depending on the values that we have. The same thing we do a scale. Of course, these values, it's like number, and they are endless. Of course, this one we can have temperature in degrees Celsius. This can be temperature. They can be given in percentages, they can be given in anything. But here we have now the locations. Maybe we have that, maybe we have that. I'm just giving an assumption. Maybe that, and maybe that one. Maybe this is region A. Let me name them. This is region A. This is region B. This is region C. Maybe this is region D. And above here we have the location. This is the location, or the regions. Now the same thing happens when we are drawing. We skip a space. Whether you are drawing a horizontal, whether you are drawing a vertical, space is always there. So these values we can put maybe the temperature. Of course, this is the 00. Then the other thing you will also understand, we may have things like that are in decimals. You know, you can have a temperature in degrees Celsius which is maybe 30.5. So here we can have maybe -1. This is -2, -3. Then this is a 1. This is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. Now we start drawing the bars. When you are drawing these bars, we said we skip a line. Let's assume the first region had temperature of, let's say, 7. So I'm going to skip one line, maybe like that, up to 7. Then I move up to 7 as well. That's a bar. We can use the same numbering whereby that all these values are going to be representing the locations. We shade them same way. Let me assume maybe the second region had a positive, had a negative, maybe a -2. So I will skip 1. I'll skip a 1, then I start from, I'm going to -2. Maybe it is here. So in between here, you've seen I've skipped 1. You have seen that I've skipped 1. You have seen that I've skipped 1 here. There is a 1 which is uniform. Even down here, I skipped a 1. So maybe the second region, we had a positive, let's say +5. So it will be the same thing. I will skip 1. I go up to 5. Maybe 5 is up to there. Then I move. I plot the same thing for region, this second region, maybe the third region D. Maybe for it had a negative as well. It had maybe a -1. I skip 1. That's a -1. Then I move. So you will see that I've skipped 1. Then we shade it using maybe a similar shading. You will see that all this information has been shaded in the same way. Then I bring my key here. Of course, I say whatever you've seen that has been put in that perspective, it is representing the what? Remember the down part we have named the temperatures. So those will be the regions or locations if we had not allocated it here. But at some point, even if you allocate here and you have also allocated here, even if you don't shade, you can just leave it, it will be fine. So that's how we can be able to represent that data in line to being horizontal in terms of the bars, and at the same time representing the negative values. So it all depends on what is going to be, because there are situations, you may find the situation that the values that are at the vertical, they are the ones that are going to be negatives. If it is the values at the vertical, then you will just proceed downwards. Here you just be proceeding downwards like this to indicate even the negatives, and then you plot the negatives. So the bars will be vertical. But this one I wanted to illustrate something where the values are vertical, the bars are are horizontal in nature, and at the same time there are some negatives. So you base on the information that you have been given to you, that has been given to you, then you know what to do. Of course, there are situations where you are going to be given data, and that data needs you to draw 2 bars, like 2 bar charts that are placed back to back. What do I mean by back to back information? You can be given data, but this data needs you to just do a comparison. They are mainly used for comparison purposes. Basically used for comparison purposes. For example, if I'm dealing with maybe population pyramids, if I'm dealing with information, maybe I'm dealing with marks of students, but these marks of students are stipulated into what we call the female and then the male, maybe based on their gender. You find that I have information for the scores of the students or the marks of the students, but at the same time, these marks are split into male and female. So the question is, how am I going to draw those bars if I've been told to draw bar charts, but the information is stipulated in two aspects? They may also be salaries. You are looking at the salaries of maybe some employees maybe in local government or in the government sector, but these salaries are different based on whether someone is a male or is a female, not based on the education level. It could also be based on the education level, that because someone maybe is in a higher position because of the qualifications that they have, and that's why they are earning more money. But the comparison is not within the education. The comparison is on the money they are receiving between male and the female. Meaning, how will you be able to draw such analysis? I've given you the best way is when maybe look at when the ISPAO is releasing examinations. They always give the percentages of the general performance. Then they also go ahead to look at how the male and female students performed in their examinations. And then they give a conclusion based on whether the female have scored highly or have passed more than the male students. So that kind of analysis, how can we do that when you are basically using bar charts? So I'm going to give you some information, maybe relating to maybe a district payment for the different employees. So let's have an example. The table below shows earning in a district by sex in thousands of shillings. So let's look at the information. It is based on how the male and female students are earning in a district. So we are looking at, let's assume that we are looking at the payroll of a certain district. So let me represent the data in a tabular form. Salary, let me use letter X, salary X. Of course, they told us it is in thousands. So put 00 in shillings, thousands. But the information we have is both for males and then the females. So of course we have those 100 to 300, then 300 of course, and 1 to 500. Then we can go maybe to 500 to, let's say, 1 million, and then 1 million to 3 million. So the male students or the male employees are 6 who are earning between 100,000 to 300. Then these ones are 9, these ones are 6, these ones are 5, these are 9, these are 5, and of course this is 1, these are 3. Then let's have the required. Required is for us to draw a back-to-back bar chart showing the salary earnings. So you are seeing that the title is going to be basically on the salaries. It is going to be showing the salaries, and what the title shows most of the times is what we put in the key, because that's what the examiner is trying to find out from the information that we have been given. So let's start with the title. The title, of course, we can call it salary earnings, salary earnings in a district, salary earnings in a district by gender or sex, by sex. You can show a graph, you can say a graph, so you say a graph or a back-to-back graph. I have not written that, but you can say a back-to-back graph showing or representing the salary earnings. Then you proceed. Now, how are we going to represent this? It's going to be in a horizontal perspective. So the same way we are going to draw this is the same way you would draw what you call a population pyramid. You might not be examined on a population pyramid, but I'm just giving you an extra, because we are not just studying these things, we are looking at things that we may encounter. So maybe you can start with the baseline. Let's use that as our baseline. Now, this is going to be different. When you look at the vertical, the information that was given to us in the question is in range. They have given us intervals. So we don't have specific values. The only specific values that we have are the ones for the sex, by male or female. They have given us the number of people that earn the amount that is in such a range. So what we are going to do, we always put that range in the vertical. How do we do that? We can create maybe 2 centimeters. We open up like that. Then even this side, we draw 2 big lines for the vertical line, like the way you have seen there. So what we do, we come and start naming those ranges that they have given to us. The first one, it is 100 If it can fit, we put it, because at some point you may give this 2 centimeters and data doesn't form. So I'm going to show you how you write it. Remember, they are in thousands, so we don't include the thousands. You can say 100 to 300, like that. Or if the data, these sides, of course you find that the information that you have this side is a little bit wide, maybe you need to have, now the scale that you will focus on so much will be the scale for the horizontal. So if you are not good at scaling, providing the scale, you can just minimize the space in the middle that you have provided for the vertical axis, and then you say, you can say 100 to 300. You say that is a one column, like that. Or you identify it like the way I've identified it in that horizontal form. Because we know that the graph is always high vertically. It has very many centimeters when it's going on the vertical scale. But because from here I can assume any values, and even it will be the same, because you will be knowing the graph, the scale to use. That's why I've provided very few items. Then we'll go to the scale of, remember we are skipping one line, so you be careful with that. This is 301, then to 500. So we also go ahead to indicate maybe from 501 to 700. We can go ahead to indicate from 701 to 1 million. And finally we look at from the 1 million to 3 million. Then we start plotting. Of course, these values, we indicate values for the horizontal scale. Now they have told us that of course we have seen that the highest is 9, so we can use on either side the highest is 9, so we can use maybe 3, each centimeter to represent 3. So you say this is 3, that is 6, that is 9, that's 12, that is 3, that is 3, that is 6, then even that one is 3, that's 9, then that's 12. So you indicate the data. So this is 12, this is 9, this is 6, this is 3. Of course, these are 0, 0. This is 0, even this one is 0. Said we start from 0, 3, 6, 9, 12. Then we start plotting. But remember we said here we skip one line. So we are plotting those who were earning. Of course here we have not named. Here we indicate that these are, maybe we can say these are male, these are females. Either way, you can interchange and say these are male, these are female, any of that. That is in terms of our naming. So we go ahead to start plotting our values. We don't forget the fact that we skip equal spaces. So we come to the first one. How many are they that earn 100 to 300? For male, they are 6. For female, they are 9. So we know that the male, we have put the male on our left hand side, the male. So they are 6. So we push this to cover, but we skip one line. Those are male. On the same line we plot for female, they were 9. We move. We are also skipping the one line. Then we also skip one line. We plot for those that were earning 300 to 500. They were 5. Male were 5. And then the female were 6. Still the female were 6. These were 6. So we skip. The 6 is here. We skip one line. The line we are skipping must be similar. So the one for male were 5. So we pick on the same line. Maybe the 5 they are in there. Then we go to those who are earning 500 to 700. For male they were 9 and the other one they were 5. So this one were 9. They were 9. And these ones they were 5. They were 5. So we go to, for you, if you have a graph, you are drawing using a graph book, please be straight. Use rulers when you are drawing some of these things to have. Then those who are earning 700 to 1 million, those who are earning 700 to 1 million, 700 to 1 million. Actually, we didn't include the one for 700. We included the one for 500 to 1 million. There were 9 and 5. Then the last one was 1 million to 3 million. This one were 1. Female, they were 1. Actually, let's just adjust this data maybe. We put maybe this is 10. And this is maybe 6. We make this one a 6. So that we can have some information that is a little bit wide. 6. 6, 10 for the 3 million. We just have to have, I just wanted us to have to utilize the whole graph. If in the middle, let's assume that we have indicated 700 to 1 million and it has 0, 0 for both. It's not there. We skip as well, but we skip equal lines. We have skipped that. Let me show you how to draw that. We have skipped that one line up to there. Then that one line up to there. We have skipped one line. Then even here we come and skip one. So we show that data value that was representing for this last one. and we have put 10 for female. Let's go 10, that is 12. Maybe 10 is there. Let's assume that 10 is around there. Then we move. Even this side we go 6. There. Now we come and shade. We shade off. Of course, this one that had 0, 0, we can remove these slashes. Because if you leave them there, they will be like they are representing certain values when they are not representing any value. I hope you can see how we can represent that data. Then you come to the key, you show that these are salary, earnings that are represented by the yellow shading. And we are done. We have so far highlighted the horizontal presentation of data when they are all positives. So the implication here, don't think that this side is like the other graph, the x-axis, that the ones that are goes on the left are supposed to be negatives. No, here we are just indicating the values for the two for comparison purposes. So when you look at what you have as far as the male are concerned, maybe these values here and this value, you can do a comparison and you say that most of the people earn between 1 million to 3 million, because we are seeing, and it's actually the female students who are earning 3 million are more than the male students who are earning between 1 million to 3 million, because you are seeing this one is higher than this. That's how we make conclusions. Or someone can say that at least majority of the people earn above 500, because we can see that if you look at this graph here, this one, here, and this one, of course we can see that this graph here is higher than this, but this one is higher than for all. Someone can because this one and this one, they look almost the same. So this one is higher, and even this one is higher than both of these two. So the implication is that majority of the male students earn above 500. You will be right, because this one is higher, even this one is a little bit higher. So it means we have very many people who are congested in this area and in this area who are earning. Because these are 9 plus the 6, that's going to be 15. And this is a 6 plus a 5, that is 11. So that's why we are saying majority of the male students earn above 500. You will be right. So if you want to analyze this, of course you can come here, you say these are 9 plus these are 6, of course, plus this. This will give you 15. Now, how many are these? Of course, this is 10. This one is 10, and this one is 6. That will be 16. Are you not seeing that this 16, this is 16, this is 15? So majority of the female students earn above 500, because here we have 16 students who are earning above 500, and we have 15 female employees who are earning below 500. So that's how you can do some kind of analysis to explain some of the drawings that you have drawn. So it depends on what the examiner is trying to look for, because the examiner can guide you on what percentage or on what explanation you should give as far as to the earnings of the different sexes are concerned. But for this one, since it was general, they wanted us to draw and show the salary earnings by gender or by sex. You just compare. You add the total, that this one will have 16 plus 15, that gives you a 31. Then this one, of course, will have 11 plus 15, that gives you a 26. So we can say that female employees earn more than the male employees. That is the general conclusion you can give. So that's all that I wanted to talk about as far as simple bar charts are concerned. We are done with bar charts, especially for simple. So what we are going to look at are the compound bar charts. We want also to look at the different bar charts. We look at the steps on how we draw them. Then how do we interpret the data? Because that is very important. The reason that's why we are presenting this information into graphs is for us to be able to analyze it critically. So that's what we are going to look at in the next video. Of course, I want to conclude that for those who actually want to be part of our recorded lectures for all levels, this is for all levels. So far we have created videos for all levels. So far I finalized level 3. Level 3. So we have moved from level 1 to level 3. So we have recorded classes plus revision classes, and we give a 12-month period. A 12-month period from the time of payment. If you pay today in the month of June, you take a full year. You count 12 months from the time of payment, and the amount we are paying is only 200,000. And this 200,000, it's a one-time payment for that 12 month. When the 12 month elapses, you lose access. But when you pay, you still gain access. So we have video lectures like the way you are seeing them. Then we also have revision. Of course, the other one we have lecture videos based on the syllabus. Then we also have revision classes looking at the different CPA papers. So if you are interested to be part of that group, once you have paid your money, of course, we have both bank. You can pay through our bank account. It's in the names of Chucks Holdings, Uganda Limited, or you pay through our Momo MTN Momo, Momo Pay. Of course, we will add you to that. We will add you to the class that will help you gain access. So if you want to be part of it, of course, we always put the WhatsApp number. You are going to be looking at the WhatsApp number on this very video. You just send a WhatsApp, be straightforward, send a WhatsApp saying you want to be part of the recorded lectures. It's the number is 0792915722. You don't send money on that number because that number is registered in the company names. It's not on a mobile money. The money is paid on a merchant code. Of course, you dial *165 *3 hash. Then you follow the prompts. When you send a hi to this WhatsApp number, you will be given the Momo Pay or the bank account. It's a Stanbic bank account. Then this one is an MTN Momo Pay, where you make payments and then we grant you access to your full year access at only 200,000 Ugandan shillings. So that's all for today. Let's meet in the next video as we are talking about the compound bar graph or bar chart.